Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now apparently Daniel Dubois has a meeting with a specialist in early February. That is according to his promoter Frank Warren, who had a virtual get together with him quite recently. Now we knew that the damage sustained to that eye was potentially career threatening considering the amount of swelling that was caused and the potential nerve damage and damage to the orbital bone, but we don't know the extent of that injury just yet with regards to how it will affect Daniel Dubois' career going forwards. Now, obviously in that fight with Joyce, he was fighting well. It wasn't like it was a one-sided beatdown, it was just the continuing damage he was sustaining to that eye. And the jab that Joyce was throwing was extremely effective, and Daniel Dubois didn't really adjust to counteract that in any way. Now, it was the way the jab was landing. It wasn't necessarily landing on the outer side of the eye. It was almost coming up and landing underneath, so it was going inside, which caused a lot more damage. Obviously, if a jab is landing continuously in the same place over the course of 10 rounds, that is going to cause a sustained amount of damage to that part of his face. If it was landed in different parts, then it might be different, but considering Joyce was aiming for that, he was looking to break that part down, because Daniel Dubois at that point was the faster fighter in there, the more explosive also, so Joyce had to close that gap. He had to try and use the fundamentals to make sure that he had a place in the fight, because Joyce, if he would have fought the same way Dubois did, then he would have lost, but if he stays clever, stays behind the jab, sets everything up with that, then he is able to control everything that Daniel Dubois is doing, but not just that, cause the damage that he was able to. So essentially, if Joyce would have gone in there doing the same thing as Dubois, looking to land hooks, looking to land combinations, he wouldn't have won because he's not fast enough to do that. So he was smart. He used his training and the things he's learned over the course of his career, in the amateurs also, to get him the victory. And it was just the way he broke Daniel Dubois down using that. He barely threw any other punches than the jab, because he knew he wasn't quick enough and explosive enough to land them. Obviously those kind of punches that started coming in around after the 8th round, he was being a little bit more creative, but that was only when Daniel Dubois slowed down. So it was a very clever game plan from Joyce to thwart all the success of Daniel Dubois with the jab, to set all of his punches up off of that jab, but not only that, to land it in the same place each and every time to sustain the most amount of damage to Daniel Dubois that he can. And as I said, it was the way the jab was landing as opposed to just the jab landing continuously. It was the way that Joyce placed it and positioned it so that he was causing that kind of damage. So essentially going forwards, what can Daniel Dubois do differently, and how will this affect him? Well, I guess we'll have to wait until February to understand the extent of the injury and how it will affect his boxing career, because that could be his career on the line at that moment, but he needs to change the way he fights with regards to how he adjusts in those fights. It's not necessarily like he has to change everything, but he needs to be able to adjust in those type of fights, so he cannot continuously be caught with the same kind of punch, because he was caught with that jab continuously through the fight. What happens if it's a right hand, a left hook, an uppercut? He needs to make sure he is able to make those adjustments when it truly matters. That is the reason why he fell short in this fight, because he wasn't able to make those adjustments. Now, having said that, I think that Daniel Dubois fought extremely bravely in that fight. I thought he was incredible how he continued, but he stopped at the right time. He saved his career by stopping at that moment. So there is no disrespect towards Daniel Dubois. He done the right thing for his career. If you consider he has this meeting with a specialist in February to talk about his career and whether he is able to resume training and get back into the ring, then if he had gone on a couple more rounds, then imagine the position he would be in. So that was completely the right choice to make at that moment. Now this is what Frank Warren had to say about Daniel Dubois. I had a virtual get together with Daniel Dubois and his team last week. The hope is there is no lasting damage to his eye. He has a further specialist examination booked for early February, where we are hopeful he'll be given the all clear to resume training. So there we go, that is what Frank Warren has had to say about this and the situation with Daniel Dubois. So I would say that that sounds a little bit more positive than negative. So hopefully Daniel Dubois will be able to get back to training in February, but I wouldn't want to see him in the ring this side of July or June. I think that he does need some time. I believe that he should be getting back in the ring at the end of the year, maybe October sort of time. I know that seems like a long time for him to stay out of the ring, but making sure that that heals and the damage is repaired is vital to Daniel Dubois' career, so he doesn't want to rush it. Whatever the specialist says, he must abide by. So if they tell him he must wait maybe 3 or 4 months, then that is what he must do, because obviously it's not just about the fight that he will be taking, it's about sparring in between that also, returning to training, the strain that will take on his body whilst he is trying to heal. So he doesn't necessarily want to push it, he doesn't want to rush it, and he doesn't need to. He's only 23 years of age. He has plenty of time. He's 3 or 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 years away from his prime. So he has plenty of time. And the best thing is he made the right decision in that Joyce fight. So I'm hoping that Daniel Dubois will be a lot better by February. I'm hoping he will be back in training, not sparring just yet, but then looking to set a date late in the year. Then he can get back to his best and he can start climbing the ladder once again. But it won't be a top level opponent that he steps in there with. It should not be, because he does need to get back in there, back to winning ways, and ensure that the damage sustained to his eye in that Joyce fight does not affect him going forwards in his career. The last thing he wants to do is go in there with a high skilled opponent who can cause damage and will be looking to cause damage to that region of his face. Then there could be a problem. There is also the mental side of it as well. The fact that the injury has happened in the past, could it happen again? That is going to be going through the mind of a Daniel Dubois, and it's going to take someone who's extremely mentally tough to get through that. I believe Daniel Dubois can. I think that the mindset he's shown just going into the Joyce fight has proven that he's mentally tough and strong enough to get through something like this. But again, it's going to take time. It's not going to be easy. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And he must fight the necessary opponents at the right time. So it's not going to be a big comeback against a high level opponent. It shouldn't be. It should be against someone who is maybe around a British level. Then he can start getting back to winning ways. I mean, we said in the build-up that Daniel Dubois could take a loss a lot better than Joyce because he has a time on his side. He was about 10, 11 years younger, maybe more than that, than Joyce. So he has plenty of time to recoup, get better, and to come back. There is no rush. He's far from his prime just yet. As I said, he might have 6 years until he gets to that point because obviously he's a heavyweight. Heavyweights seem to go on forever. Look at Joyce, 35 years old. And he's still just coming through. He's still about to get his world title opportunity. He is hoping against Alexander Usyk, or at least that will be for the interim title. So when you factor that in, as long as Daniel Dubois is given the all clear, as long as everything is okay, which I hope it is, then he should be okay. He should be able to get back to boxing later in the year, back to training in the late February. Obviously though, it will take time and he'll have to be careful with it training like sparring and things like that. So guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.